Hi there, this is Fiona Lewis from Super Savvy Business. In this week's episode of our podcast, we're going to be talking about the key elements of web design and web design best practice. I've been in the digital marketing space now since 2008, and I see people making the same mistakes over and over again when it comes to designing their website. So today I've brought on the call with me Dan Proctor from Simply, and Dan is one of those fantastic experts when it comes to websites and web design. Dan Proctor is the CEO of Simply, which was founded in 2002. Now, you might think that people in the web design industry are all self-confessed techies, but Dan's the first one to put his hand up and confess that he's a non-techie. However, he has a simple, common sense and conversion-focused approach towards building a successful website and a total web strategy. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you to the call, Dan.
Thanks, Fiona. It's great to be here.
Now, Dan, as I mentioned in our introduction, we're going to be talking today about best practice for web design because we were chatting the other day and commenting about how often we see things go wrong with people who spend a lot of money on websites. However, these websites are simply not set up to give the customer a return on investment.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to go online. And the first thing I'd like to say is that going online is a process. It's definitely not set and forget. And in our business, the process starts with understanding your user. So, 5 years ago, we used to put our websites up, and it was talking about us. It was really going on about how good we are and what we can do as a company. Where no one really cares. I'm sorry, no one cares until later. When someone gets to the site, they need a problem solved. So the first step is researching your users and understanding them really deeply before you go anywhere near design.
That's totally true. And, the web design industry has changed a lot over the years, and many web design companies are still stuck in the old ways of, getting templates and modifying those just slightly without really thinking of this website being a business tool.
Absolutely. Yeah, so many web designers start designing with what they like or what the client likes in mind, rather than, again, what the users need and the questions they need answered. So in our business model, that's step one. So it's understanding the users, and then before we test, before we even design, we test those theories, those hypotheses about a treatment for the design that would work, and once we've tested those, then we design. So in the old way of doing web design, we would take a creative brief and come back with a couple of concepts, and we'd choose one. And it's generally that was a personal opinion, usually of the CEO, of what he liked, and lo and behold, often they didn't match what the users were looking for. So things have definitely changed.
So there's quite a large amount of research involved before you even start putting graphic design down.
Absolutely. You need to understand the user's fears, doubts, and uncertainties about you as a company, and understand where they are in the buying cycle. So if, depending on where they are in the buying cycle, information gathering stage or ready to buy, for example, there's different call to actions for that user. And you need to understand, the questions that they need answered. If you're not answering those questions, they're back to Google. So there's even psychology. A lot of UX people these days are psychology, have degrees in some kind of psychology degree, understanding what motivates people and to take action.
Now, you just used a bit of jargon there for those of us who are listening who may not know what UX is. Would you just want to give them a quick explanation?
Very quickly, UX stands for user experience. So we when someone comes to the site, people are at different stages of their buying journey. So we need to push them down the path of that journey, depending on where they're at.
That's exactly right. And you use some other terminologies there which sort of ring bells in my head, because it's so nice to speak to someone else that understands things from a web design point of view the way I do. And that is, people aren't really interested about you as a company. What they're interested in is, how can you help me? How can you solve my problems, my fears, my frustrations, whatever those things are. So it's that whole coming back to that concept of what's in it for me.
Absolutely. As I said earlier, no one cares about you yet. They really don't. They've got a problem and they need it solved. And if you can solve that quickly, in the first couple of seconds through a value proposition and building trust, that's what you've got to do first of all. They've got to understand your value proposition, that you're solving a problem of theirs. Then they'll read on. So initially, you need to create a great first impression. Your value proposition needs to stand out, that you can solve a problem they have, and then they'll read on. If you don't do those things really quickly, then away they go, back to Google, off to the competition.
And here's another classic mistake. Sometimes that value proposition is so far down the page because they've got big headers and pictures. And so when someone arrives at the site, the critical information is actually below the fold, which means you'd have to scroll to see that. So from a web design point of view, it's so important, isn't it, to have that right at the top, so it's the first thing they see.
Absolutely. The way we think about it is from a usability expert years ago, and he said, when you think homepage, think of driving past a billboard at 80 k's an hour. So you might have a big visual, but you've certainly got a big attention-grabbing headline, and then some kind of call to action. So your homepage, particularly above the fold, is exactly that. You need to grab someone's attention and then show them, okay, what can they do from here? And then it comes down to why should they do it? So building trust and credibility and those sorts of things.
You just used another magic word that I love, and that is call to action.
Oh, CTA.
How many websites do you see out there that don't have any type of call to action?
Most, yeah. Or
the strongest one they have is call with a number.
Yeah, call. Yeah, well, call to actions, they're a great way to increase. A great way to increase conversions is through relevant call to actions. So if I'm on a particular service page, don't give the same call to action as I would for, say, web design versus graphic design. They're different things and they need different call to actions. And so make them specific to the page and tell them what's going to happen when they take the action. So give them some security that, for example, it's going to be a no obligation, comfortable process. We'll be back to you and, we'll respond in an hour or 24 hours. So tell them what's going to happen when they take that action. Give them that certainty.
So in this new way of doing things, we've talked about researching and, coming up with the UX design. What happens, once you've done all of that?
So basically what you've got at that stage is a bunch of electronic sketches, and we then throw those sketches to testers to see if they understand A, things like the value proposition, B, solve the customer's problems in terms of where they are up in their journey. Are they early in the buying cycle, or are they ready to buy right now? And you just see if there's anything really jumping out that causes confusion. And that's the key word right there, confusion. A confused buyer will leave. They won't ask a question, they'll just leave. So that's what we test before we even get to design. Design's the pretty stuff. It's the first impressions, it's the brand, those sorts of things that are really important, but comes after answering the user's questions.
That's such a good strategy, and it is completely different to what people have done in the past and what still a lot of companies are doing now.
Totally. We're proud of it, and it's definitely the way the industry is going or will go.
So once you've tested that and you do come up with a design, I guess the next stage is to release that, to make it go live, or
the next step is to come up with a design, and then ideally, if the budget is there, we test it again. So just to make sure that through design we somehow haven't confused the user. Maybe it was too busy, the call to action didn't stand out, whatever it is, but we can test it again. So there's plenty of design tools out there that automate that process, and even just throwing it in front of a couple of the client's users is another really good way. If we can get access to them, we will.
Fantastic.
So the next stage, after we're all on board, that we're not confusing anyone in terms of our target audience, and we release. So we'll build the site and release to the public. and generally